Skyler. Well, he just, guys have good days and sometimes not so good days, and I think he's a pretty poised young guy, and I think not unnecessarily concerned about getting rattled in a way unfamiliar environment, which it is and was. He's a young guy that can kind of stay within the boundaries that you provide for him, and does it pretty thoroughly. I think probably just his poise and and his self-confidence, I think, are major.
How about this season? How would you assess him through 3 games, entering his second Big 12 season?
A young guy that's needs to make improvement and is making improvement. He's played better, but again, it's early, and so I don't get overly judgmental. Too early in the season, but I think he's taken some steps forward. As soon as you say that, then that's a kiss of death sometimes. But I think he has grown as we've gone through the season, and I would like to think that he would continue to do so, as I would like to think that everybody in the program would continue to do so. That's highly significant for us.
Coach,
that you have all bases covered, and everybody's in the best position to do what they have to do. There's some things that have some detail to them that you can see from the sidelines that you can't see from the box, and vice versa. And most people would say, well, you're up high and you can see virtually everything, and that's not totally true. But nevertheless, there's a lot of things that you can see better up there than you can on the sidelines. So it's the important thing is the transmittal of information. That it can be done in a timely fashion that doesn't disrupt the decision-making process. Because there's an awful lot that goes on. You got 22 guys out there, and so the dynamics of that is endless, and it's important to have eyes on virtually everything, and so you got to put your people in a position where they can get their eyes where they need to be, and then they've got to be able to transmit the information in a timely fashion, as I indicate, so the information can get processed, and then decisions can be made based on that. So that was the means for the purpose, I think, behind a number of changes that were made, and and just the dynamics of how we positioned ourselves and who's paying attention to what, and the communication process, just to try to make it better.
With all the changes on staff on both sides, how many other things have had to be tweaked for 3 weeks, communication-wise, with all those processes?
Well, I mean, on both sides we have, because when we say tweaked, it's not that any of the coaches were doing anything necessarily wrong. It's just a matter of trying to get everybody coordinated in the best possible position to be able to do what they have to do and see what they have to see, just what I was indicating a minute ago, and then being able to bring it all together in a timely fashion. So.
Bill, Skyler and Dalton have had quite the touchdown connection in the last 2 games, hitting Skyler finding him deep for a pair of scores. What's most impressed you about their connection and their ability to make those kind of plays?
Well, I thought in 3 occasions this last week, 1 with Alex and 2 with Skyler, I thought significant. A, we caught the ball, and we haven't always done that. And B, I thought the throws were excellent throws. In both cases, it's when you're throwing the ball, from me to 50 yards down the field, that's a harder throw than people want to imagine, and how much air you put underneath it, or the amount of elevation that you get on the ball is really significant in those kinds of throws. And you know, they're learning that process quite well, and they have developed a good coordination with not just one receiver but several receivers in our program to be able to execute those things. I think both of them have done well.
And you saw Will Greer in person last year, but after seeing him on tape now, do you think he's evolved? Has he matured as a quarterback since you last played him?
Well, yes, he has, and yet, I mean, he was pretty good to begin with, and but you see him getting better. I mean, that's what this game is all about, and I see the improvement. He's in so many different ways. You know, I think and most people, I think, see it the same way. You know, he manages the process in the game, you know, as well as most any. He understands the offense extremely well. He knows, you know, what to be in, what not to be in. Throws the ball extremely well. Throws all types of balls well. He's the guy that you see him run around quite a bit back there. I mean, he did against us last year and got a touchdown that made the difference in the ball game at the end of the day. You've seen it happen again. He's an excellent scrambler, I guess is what I'm saying. And he has the athletic ability to really make people miss. You look at we have a cut up of all the scrambles that he's made, and you know, it's amazing how he's been able to avoid, you know, tackles from some very fine athletes. You know, just by he'd be a great dodgeball player. He makes people miss quite well, and that's freed him up, you know, a great deal to throw the ball. He got one this last week against they play Youngstown State, just scrambling and finding an open area and throwing it. Like I said, he got one against us, got in the end zone as well for the same reason, you know, where we should have had him tackled and didn't. So he's a good player.
Coach, a follow-up to John's earlier question. Back when you were an OC at Iowa, was your preference to be in the box or the field, and why was that your preference?
Well, I can't tell you that I can remember all of that. Hayden probably put me in the box and said, "You're in the box," so that's what I did. But I liked being in the box because of being able to envision, you know, as much as I could. It's been so long, you know, since I've been up there that, you know, I can't tell you that I have a real good feel for it, as I think hopefully I did, you know, back then. But I liked, you know, based on what I was doing, I liked being up there, or preferred being up there. Let me put it that way.
Just one more follow-up right here on the offensive coordinator change and what have you. Is that expected to be a permanent change, or is it something you're just more of a one-game experiment for now?
Doing what?
In terms of switching, where, you know, Coleman being on the field and climbing, is that supposed to be? Are you expecting it to be a permanent change for the rest of the season?
Well, everything's permanent until it's not, isn't it? I mean, if it proves to be, I don't know where that's going. If it proves to be the best thing, then that's what we'll do. You know.
And then going back to last season's game, you know, you guys were able to shut them out completely in the second half, kept them off the scoreboard. Is there anything that you guys can take from this year, or is it one of those deals where the teams have changed so much that's basically ancient history?
Well, I wouldn't say it's ancient history, but and I think there's some significance to it. You know, at least as you relate information to your players. You know, but I don't want to wait until the second half to move in that direction. You know, the first half counts. They put that on the scoreboard too. So, you know, we'd better, you know, make the effort to play as well defensively as we can in the first half. I think it's significant though, because it proves that, you know, that we were able to do exactly that. And you know, all those ball games have been, you know, so close. I think what were they? I said it the other day. I think it was a 5-point game, a 1-point game, a 1-point game, and a 6-point game. in the last 4 years, and just like they did, they had their chance to win all of them. We had our chance to win all of them. So it's but because you play 4 close ones doesn't mean number 5 is, will, or has to be close as well. I mean, nothing is dependent upon what took place last year.
Bill, when it comes to being a play caller, it was referenced about you being up, excuse me, in the box at Iowa. Whether it's somebody that's been on your staff or elsewhere in your time in college football, what makes a great play caller, and who would you say are 2 of the best that maybe you've been around or become friends with over the course of time?
Well, I don't know. That's a bunch of questions, and I don't want to be put in a position to to criticize anybody. And I have no criticism of of our guys. And I was up in the or on the field as well. I mean, here for however many years, 20 years or whatever the number is. I did it on the field. So yeah, I mean, it's manageable either way. And I think the most important thing is just, once again, is the transferal or transmittal of information. I mean, that's that's why they went out and changed all the rules in the NC2A, because everybody's got 6,208 coaches, and so everybody's got one piece of the puzzle. We don't have that those kind of numbers, so everybody has to see more than one shoelace, and so that takes some organization and some focus and some concentration. Who are I don't know where I'm going with that, but who are the best guys that I've been around? I don't have any particular favorites. I think guys we've had all have done well. I don't know anything about anybody else, any other place.
Coach Justin Hughes saw more playing time last week. What did you like most about what he did at linebacker?
Well, Justin's situation has just been one of being able to, process information and play by the guidelines. By that I mean do what you're supposed to do. And his effort is good. He can run around pretty well. Not afraid to hit you. But I've never always been certain exactly where that's going to take place and whether it's in the right place or not. And he's become much more conscientious of what his shortcomings had been, and he has grown and improved and become a better player, and consequently deserved more playing time, and got it.
Will Elijah Sullivan be playing this week?
Elijah should be able to go.
Coach, in 7 of the last 9 years, you've had a running back have double-digit receptions in the season. Alex had 5 receptions a year ago. He already has 5 in 3 games so far this season. What is that added dimension that Alex can give you as a receiver? And also, could you assess his 30-yard reception that he had in the past game?
Well, I don't know how to assess it other than he ran the route, got himself open, and it was a nice throw. But I think in terms of his, as we've said a number of times, Scotty, he's become a very conscientious player, and conscientious of all of the responsibilities that he has. It's so easy to get locked into, you love to run the football, and that's all you want to do is run the football, and the rest of it goes for naught. But running backs have to be able to pass protect. They sometimes have to be able to run block, and certainly they have to be involved in the passing game and as receivers. And so you have to run routes. You got to be able to catch the ball well, etc. And he takes a great deal of pride in each of those. I'm quite certain running the ball is the most significant thing for him, but he's a very team-oriented young guy, and he he will do everything he has to be as good as he can in those other areas of running back play. And has done a nice job of it, truly has.
Coach, the importance of defensive line making progress and getting pressure on Wilker this week.
Well, that's always not the easiest thing in the world. It's you can go north and south, but when you do that, he's going east and west, and we don't have anybody catch him from any of our up front guys as well. So it's it's a mixed bag, so to speak. It's a difficult position to be in. Now that coupled with the fact that we have not been a good four-man pass rush team. Or at least not as good as I would like for us to be. Now, that's defined probably more so in terms of sacks, which we have very limited number of sacks. But there are some pressures that we've been able to put on the path. Wyatt Hubert got another tip pass last week. Something like that. That's good pressure, but it doesn't show up as a sack. He got one the week before, and we intercepted it. That doesn't show up as a sack. So I think we get a little bit more pressure. We pressure the quarterback a little more than the statistics might indicate, but still it's not enough. And particularly against a young guy that throws it as well in a program that puts as much emphasis in the passing game as they do.
You always strive for balance in the offense, but the success in the passing game last week, how significant was that, if nothing else, just to put that on tape for other teams heading into the Big 12?
Yeah, well, it's not about putting it on tape for them because if we're any good at it, I just assume they didn't see it. But where the significance lies in the fact that it allowed a number of people to gain some confidence in the capacity to be able to throw and catch the ball and get open and pass protect and all that goes along with it, which I think helps with the confidence of the young people in our program, and consequently that does promote all the sensitivity or the feeling that you could have, you could regain balance in your offense and what you do. And as I've said about, you bring that up, and I've said about balance all the time. I mean, to have the capacity to have balance is one thing. Actually, games don't always play out that way. Somebody, defensively, somebody's going to take away something. If they can't take away both, which in some cases against us they have, but if you can't take away both, you're going to take something away. Most people will say stop the run before you do anything, which gives you a better opportunity to throw the football, and consequently your throwing stats might be far more significant, and you might utilize the throwing game a little bit more. Somebody's dedicated to take away the pass, and they're going to leave themselves somewhat vulnerable against the run. You have to be wise enough and smart enough to recognize that and be able to run the ball. So the numbers don't always indicate, that there's a balance, but it's having the capacity to have the balance that you'd like. I mentioned earlier, I don't know when it was, maybe it was in one of these things, but there was a year, several years back, I think we were something like 7 yards difference between our total pass offense and our total run offense. I know when I was at the University of Iowa, we had 3 or 4 years in succession where, the difference was less than 50 yards between run and pass. That's a good place to be, I think. Very hard to achieve, of course.
But showing that balance and showing the ability to throw maybe make teams a little more reticent to just line up in the box and try to take away the run.
Well, I mean that's what you hope for, to give yourself an opportunity to run the football. But if they choose, and our offense maybe promotes that a little bit more. But if they want to add the people in there, then you've got to be able to throw the football, and maybe that makes them a little bit more sensitive to doing it. So, and I don't mind if they put them all up in there if we're throwing the ball well. If we're protecting well, throwing well, running routes well, man-to-man coverage, and all that goes along with it.
I have a feeling I know your answer to this already, but I'm going to ask it anyways. It seems like you guys are always starting Big 12 play on the road. Does that create a challenge for you, or at the end of the day, does it really matter opening on the road versus opening at home?
Well, you've heard me say so many times, I love playing at home. I just like playing at home, like being here. You got to be able to win on the road. You got to be able to win whether it's first game or not. I'm very cognizant of the fact that we have always opened the season, and it would seem like there would be a little bit better rotation in taking that in consideration. I think that's probably not part of the dynamics of making those kind of schedules, and it's all done by a computer. So I need to talk to the computer, I guess.
Coach, the last couple of ball games, Blake Lynch has been involved in tackles, in coverage, and he's the last line of defense. But at practice, does he and the kickers have that opportunity to actually go and make tackles, or do you keep them away from that as much as possible?
Well, they don't. They don't actually make the tackles. I mean, they better be in position to do so. I mean, Sean makes sure of that, and I don't. It's a physical game, and just because you're a kicker doesn't mean that you can't be, share that physicality with your teammates. You'd hate to get a young guy hurt, quite obviously, but that's true at any position that you have. My concern, my bigger concern is, why is our safety having to make one of the safeties? We have more than one, but why is the safety having to make a tackle on a kick return? That's so that speaks to another 8 or 9 guys that were in the position to make the play before it ever got to Blake. That's where my concern lies, biggest concern anyway.
Could you imagine somebody his size playing anywhere else on the field?
Well, I guess you could if you were good enough. He's good at what he does, so he can do what he does. You probably wouldn't think a guy that small would even have enough leg range, because everybody thinks if you swing your leg hard, that the kind of strength you have in your leg will define the distance that you can hit a football, and the range that you have is kind of like with a bat. If I hold the bat here and do that, I'm not going to hit the ball very far. But when you swing the bat, and I'm not the guy to look at about that, but when you swing the bat, it comes from way back here, so it goes through a long range of motion. That's what creates and generates the power. And short guys, don't have quite that kind of range, and yet he still gets it up there. So he's if he were bigger, he might be, when I say bigger, if he were longer, he might really have some long range potential. But I'm so proud of him. He just does so well to go out there and oblivious to any kind of pressure that might be on him. He really has a tremendous capacity to stay focused on this task at hand, and you'd like to have everybody at every position to have that same kind of focus.
Excuse me, I'm interested in your defense. How different are the two safety roles and their responsibilities? And with that in mind, how did Kendall and Eli do filling in for Denzel last week?
Well, both of them did well. Normally, one of your safeties is probably going to be a little bit more run-oriented. When I say more run-oriented, he's the guy that you're probably going to add to the box or to the front seven to get enough people up there to defend against the run. It's not always the same guy, but more often than not, it is. And the other one is, more of a kind of a free safety type individual when we're playing certain coverage. There's so many different coverages that you have that all of those responsibilities vary from time to time. But in essence, if you just lined up in our base games, one's a little more, both of them are pass oriented, but one of them's a little bit more run oriented than the other.
Coach, as I mentioned earlier, last time you were on the road in the Big 12, you guys were big underdogs, about 21-point underdogs at Oklahoma State. This game, West Virginia's never beaten K-State by more than 5 points in the Big 12, but West Virginia's favored by about 16 points right now. What's it like being being the underdog? Is that something that you enjoy?
Well, it's how we got there that is what concerns me. I mean, that is, you know, West Virginia's a very fine football team and deserves, you know, rankings, et cetera, et cetera. But, you know, we're an immense underdog because we have not played as well as we're capable of playing. So that's what, at least that's what that tells me. And that's what my concern is, that we have to play better and make the kind of improvement that we're capable of making. And to this point in time, we've made some strides, but we're certainly not there yet.
Knowing that you don't have McGee and Goolsby available, are there any specific young players in secondary you're really looking to see step up, or you're just like, well, we just need to really ride more with our upperclassmen?
Well, I mean, you want all of them, you know, to step forward. I mean, we have no options right now. You look at our depth chart, and you know, and it doesn't go very far. So all of them really have to become as rapidly as possible the best possible players that they can be, and then we've got to make sure we, you know, have a good sensitivity to, you know, what they can and what they can't do, and not put them in positions to do something that they're unable to do. Now, who we're going to go with? We're going to go with you know, 4 best guys that we've got, 5 if we put 5 on the field. So, but that's not any different than anybody else.
And then I wanted to ask about, you know, the last 2 weeks, you know, he's kind of had a reduced role in the offense, being Alex Delton. How has he responded to that, and what does it speak to his resiliency that he only got 1 passing opportunity last week, but he made the most of it?
Well, he sure did. I mean, that probably puts his pass efficiency rating through the roof, would be my guess.
Yeah. Over 1,000.
Over 1,000. So that's not bad. That's kind of a world record. And I think he, you know, I think he was pleased with that. Certainly, you know, I'm quite certain disappointed in not having more opportunities in the course of the ball game. But you know, his opportunities are going to come. You know, they certainly will. There's no doubt in my mind about that. And you know, it's just a matter of staying up, staying into it. Yesterday, he had a great day of practice, and everything was, you know, he was on track to try to lead his team, try to be a good leader, try to execute the run game, the pass game, and all that goes along with it, and did it with an intensity that I appreciate a great deal.